Live everywhere on netrootsradio.com. David Waldman, Kagro, in the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Friday. We made it to Friday. Friday, April 25th, 2025. Again, reminder as we gave you yesterday, I guess time to go out and get a lottery ticket. And if a 25 comes up and you win millions of dollars, hey, don't forget your friends here at Kagro in the morning. And if you don't win, hey, don't forget your friends here at Kagro in the morning. Okay, that's the fundraising pitch for today. It needs to get more serious, of course. But if I just may speak to you seriously for just a moment. Okay. Never mind that. It's Friday. It's time to get on with what's going on. Let's see. Now, this weekend, Saturday, tomorrow, is the Pope's funeral in Rome. That's where they hold them. I guess you can have them anywhere. But they decided to keep it local. And Donald Trump is attending. And we don't really know why. J.D. Vance is not attending. I guess it was enough for him to have shocked the Pope to death. And they're like, maybe keep him out of the Vatican for now. Donald Trump is going. Melania is going. I don't know if is Melania Catholic? I mean, Trump's not Catholic, but whatever. He's courting the Catholic vote, something, religion, yada, yada, yada. He's got to be involved in that. World leader, he says he is. So I assume he leaves today for that. I don't know, but he was on the move last night and causing problems for me personally, which made me very annoyed. He's also ruining the country and destroying the world. But he was creating traffic problems. It was time for some traffic problems in my corner of Virginia as he went to his Virginia Golf Club. I think this may have been his second term visit to the Virginia Club. I'm not really sure. And look, I'll tell you this. My recollection of the first term is that he moved in and out of that thing pretty smoothly and didn't actually I don't recall ever really experiencing any sort of traffic problem or street blockage when he went. I don't really know how they engineered it, how they did it, but I think they tried a different approach yesterday, maybe because he was pressed for time. Anyway, he came out to the golf club to hold what turned out to be a $1 million a plate fundraiser, which is an awful large fundraiser for a guy who is supposedly in his last term because Constitution. So that's a little worrisome all by itself, although it was for like MAGA Incorporated, which is the name of one of the super PACs or something. So they could be giving that money away, or they could just be stealing that money. I don't really know. And so it never not makes sense. Never doesn't make sense for Donald Trump to collect money from other people. He's going to do that. Anyway, $1 million a plate. They had it at the golf club, and this time they did it. I don't know. Did he used to drive all the way out here? I have the feeling that he did, because there was that one time he made this post-golf stop at a mega church on the way back that was on like Route 7 in Virginia. And so I figured they were driving the thing there and back, because it's probably, after all is said and done, not much more time to do things that way than it would be to, as they did last night, get in the helicopter, fly the helicopter to Leesburg, Virginia, Leesburg Executive Airport, land there, and then motorcade from the airport to the golf course. Anyway, point is, going about my own business yesterday, doing my own errands, picking things up from the store, whatever. The whole area is awash in cops. You know, not usually the case. And I mean, like every couple of blocks, cops parked on the side of the road. There were motorcycle cops. I went to pick up something for dinner, just quick, fast food, because we were an empty house last night pretty much. And anyway, it was just me and one production staff member, and the other half the production staff was out of the audience. It's not a very big staff. Anyway, but like 6 motorcycle cops, on the way out from the drive-through, and they were all over the place. So as it turns out, they were closing off the street for the motorcade, and it was very icky and made me feel gross. So anyway, I don't know. I found that to be interesting, and apparently, I don't know, maybe this is the way he's going to come to the golf course all the time now, or maybe it was just a trial run. I do recall at one point he did a thing but I don't know if it was going to the golf course, but he was coming to the same neighborhood essentially, and he might have been doing an event, like an outdoor event somewhere else. But they brought the helicopter and they like landed it in an athletic field somewhere nearby. And I mean, that whole thing had to be closed down. It's amazing that after 4 years in office the first time and now in his second term, he just hasn't figured out how to commute from Washington, D.C. to Loudoun County, Virginia, and let's just do it that way. Anyway, I did see on Blue Sky yesterday, some Blue Sky user posting video of himself, I guess he had to pull over to clear the street for the motorcade, and so he filmed himself giving the finger to the passing motorcade. I just wanted to warn him to be careful. In this atmosphere, it's very dangerous. You might get elected to public office for doing that here in Loudoun County. That has been known to happen. I don't know whether he heeded my warning or not. All right, time for another show. There's a million things happening, and this is my constant lament. There's always too much happening. Of course, it's a strategy, Trump turning on the fire hose of crazy. I thought we might take a slightly different approach to things here before things get too crazy. And I don't know when he's scheduled to leave for Rome, the Vatican, but I assume that will create some stories too, because anytime he walks out to a aircraft, he blabs to the press, and he'll say anything to get them to write something, and the world turns upside down on his way to and from various vehicles, and it's a little upsetting. But anyway, a couple of things to take care of that are in pocket. And then I thought, I wonder if maybe I should just like hit the headlines of some of these things and just make sure you're aware of these stories. I mean, I don't know. It's a different approach to the show today. I love diving into the stories, and I don't think I'm going to be able to prevent myself from actually doing that. But I don't know. I feel like we need to hit some more things, and then maybe I thought I would take a look at the social media screens too and scroll back, because a lot of times I will repost something or comment on something other people post, and I don't put the story away, but it's in my mind and it gets connected when I'm reading one of the larger stories. First thing I want to do, and Justice guessed this one correctly, is talk about a story from out in Nevada where a crazy person that we've mentioned on the show before has done more crazy things, but it doesn't matter because LOL YOLO, nothing matters. And you can always get pardoned by Trump. So one of the latest pardons to be issued. I'll grab the story I have from the AP. Do you remember, longtime listeners, the Nevada politician Michele Fiore? Michele Fiore, I forget the whole reason we were talking about her when she was a state legislator, but she was a hugely pro-Trump person. She loved to photograph and film herself wearing pistols, sidearms. So she was a big gun person, and I think she came first to prominence for being an outspoken Cliven Bundy supporter. But she also said a number of incredibly ridiculous, stupid-ass things, which now are, federal law. Not really law, obviously. Because Donald Trump doesn't make or sign laws. He just makes executive orders. But a purported federal policy. She's been bypassed in the crazy. So she had to do something criminal, I guess, in order to get notice. And that's okay, because if you do something criminal and say you like Donald Trump, you will not have to go to prison for it. So here's the deal. Trump pardons Nevada politician who paid for cosmetic surgery. That's not the crime. I mean, it's a bit of a crime. I imagine if we viewed the results or the before and after the plastic surgery, you might say, well, that itself is a crime against humanity. But that's not the crime. The crime is that she paid for cosmetic surgery with funds that were raised to honor a slain officer. And now you can raise money to honor a non-slain officer and steal it and use it for plastic surgery and still find yourself in trouble. But it's supposed to be that much worse because the officer was slain. You get the idea, right? Okay. Rio Yamat is the name of the reporter on this AP piece. President Donald Trump, allegedly, has pardoned a Nevada Republican politician who was awaiting sentencing. She'd been convicted, I guess. Awaiting sentencing on federal charges, which maybe they should have been state charges. And they can still do that, by the way, and that's not double jeopardy, though they'll scream and cry that it is. Awaiting sentencing on federal charges that she used money meant for a statue honoring a slain officer, police officer, for personal costs, including plastic surgery. And we're not talking about on the officer or for the officer's family. We're talking about for herself. It's fairly disgusting. I'm sure she denied it the whole time, whatever. But it's also a little bit weird to raise money for a statue for a slain police officer. But, okay, whatever. The point is you raise money for this purpose, and instead you steal it and you use it. Honestly, no matter what you use it for, you're in trouble. The fact that you use it for cosmetic surgery, and I think also her daughter's wedding, it's pretty disgusting. Not that she's going to jail for it. Michele Fiore, former Las Vegas City Councilwoman and state lawmaker who ran unsuccessfully in 2022 for state treasurer. What would have happened to your tax money? She would have got more plastic surgery. I can't believe you prevented her from doing this. Why did you curtail her individual liberty to steal your taxes? You terrible, terrible communists in Nevada. All right. Well, ran unsuccessfully in 2022 for state treasurer, found guilty in October. We missed it. Of 6 counts of federal wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, out of custody ahead of hearing. I mean, that's an interesting way of putting it. They're not out of custody, but, not under arrest. Free on bond pending sentencing. Okay. Which had been scheduled for next month. So they went all the way through the trial. He didn't spare her the trial. That happened in October, so that would have been under Biden administration, and he couldn't do anything about it. Although he may very well have put on Truth Social, I hereby pardon Michele Fiore. I'm not president yet, but it doesn't matter. Soon I will be, and everyone knows it. And once I was, and maybe I retain the pardon power forever. We don't know. We'll have to find out. But anyway, he waited for her to be almost sentenced and issued the pardon. In a lengthy statement on Facebook on Thursday, the loyal Trump supporter expressed gratitude to the president while also accusing the U.S. government, because why not, and select media outlets of a broad, decade-long conspiracy to target and dismantle her life. Anyway, the White House confirmed Fiore had been pardoned, but did not comment on the president's decision. He was issued on Wednesday, after Fiore lost a bid for a new trial. She had been facing the possibility of decades in prison, so instead she walks free and probably will run for office. And don't you Nevadans reward her for this. The details of the trial or the story, Fiore raised more than $70,000 for a statue of a Vegas area police officer fatally shot in 2014 in the line of duty. That's quite a while ago. How long have they been raising money for this? I don't know. I mean, so 2024, she's finally convicted. It's like 10 years. It took her 10 years to raise the 70,000. I don't know. Well, anyway, she raised $70,000 for this statue, but not allegedly, she was convicted of it. Spent it on cosmetic surgery, rent, which really, shouldn't you be buying at that stage of your life? Anyway, she's 54. Her daughter's getting married. She's, I don't know how much they pay you as a city council person, but she's stealing $70,000. So I think at that point you want to buy. But she's renting. And also on her daughter's wedding. So some of that money went there. Whatever. She was convicted. FBI agents in 2021 subpoenaed records and searched Fiore's home in Las Vegas in connection with her campaign spending. And that's funny. I guess they were looking at that. She was, I guess, suspected of being a dirty operator there. And I don't know whether that's how they found out about this. Anyway, here you go. Nevada Democratic Party Executive Director Hillary Barrett called the pardon reckless and a slap in the face to law enforcement officers. Kind of is. Fiore, who does not have a law degree, which ordinarily we would say that's okay, but she was appointed a judge, actually, so not okay, in Deep Red Nye County in 2022, shortly after she lost her campaign for state treasurer. So losing left and right, stealing money all over the place, and then, what the hell, let's make her a judge. She was elected last June to complete the unexpired term of a judge who had died but had been suspended without pay amid her legal troubles. Wow. So where was that? I don't know. It says where it was, but I don't know why it refers to it, but doesn't tell us why we're interested in the location. But I guess she was a judge in, is it Pahrump? Pahrump. Okay. Hours drive west of Las Vegas, but driving at 300 miles an hour, I guess. In her statement Thursday, Fiore said she plans to return to the bench next week. So I'm back. I can schedule someone else's trial now. I was going to be in jail for a couple of years, but now I'm not. How'd you like to have your case tried in front of her? So Nye County said it's awaiting an update from Fiore's current suspension from the State Commission on Judicial Discipline, which told the Associated Press in an email that it was aware that Fiore had been pardoned, but it didn't have further comment on the situation. By the way, wait for the paperwork and double, triple, quadruple check it, because Trump and paperwork, man. That'd be funny if you got to send her to jail after all. Let's see. Anything else? I mean, they refer to her first becoming famous for supporting Clive and Bundy, but by now I've forgotten what specifically she was featured on the show for, but I'm sure it was dumb. I guess I could go looking in our archives, but I'm not gonna, because there's so many other things to tell you about. All right, let's see. Let's hop back into Pocket. There are a lot of here's a theme for today. I don't know whether is Elon Musk's special government employee term coming to an end? I mean, that, like everything else, the goalposts have been moved 100 times. He is a special government employee if that helps in court, and he's not a special government employee if that helps in court, and they're limited to 120 days, but he was going to claim he was working 1 day a week so that he could work for more weeks, but then tensions and everything falling apart, and Trump seeing that Elon was an albatross around his neck, and he has to be a pretty big albatross to get around that neck. Anyway, he's supposedly now on the way out. It's the conclusion of the press that he's on his way out. And so there are some goodbye Elon retrospectives, I guess, out there. There's the insider version, Axios, right? The people who are like, hey, it could be time for authoritarianism, and here's what people are saying about how it could really work because of how cool it is and strongly strong it looks. And then there's the New York Times version, which is only slightly better than that. But we got the Times reports under the headline of what Elon Musk didn't budget for. This is an interesting thing, maybe good procedural on this. Firing workers costs money too. That's right. Axios, again, sort of looking at it from the Axios perspective, like, wasn't he awesome and stuff? Well, here's, in this case, it's like, well, okay, he did a terrible job. Sure, he did a terrible job, but he made such an impact, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to read the Axios one anyway. Elon Musk leaves a legacy of self-destruction at Dodgy, Zachary Basu's piece is entitled. And so it's kind of about how he left his reputation in tatters, but that's the Axios approach to everything. The New York Times does a little better in saying, well, here's substantively what the wreckage was all about. Shall we start with the superficial or the substantive? Let's do the superficial, because why not? Axios, again, Zachary Basu reporting, Elon Musk leaves legacy of self-destruction at Dodgy. Elon Musk arrived in Washington as the most powerful political outsider ever, and I guess that's true. He was appointing IRS commissioners last week, and then guy got dumped rather unceremoniously, which is good, fine. This is the way it's supposed to be. I mean, there's no reason in the world why Elon Musk should have been left with that power, and that it should happen without anybody noticing is incredible. And then a week later, we're writing his political obituary. Anyway, most powerful political outsider ever, brimming with Silicon Valley swagger and bipartisan buy-in for his goal of streamlining the federal government. And there's the legacy of people who did dumb stuff like, well, I'll initially say I'd be willing to work with him on XYZ just to look like I can be, I can be worked with. I'm reasonable. I'm a bipartisan kind of guy. And now the legacy of this total wanton destruction of the American system of government and maybe the world order along with it is now got bipartisan buy-in. Good job. Well played. You are super smart. Oh, God, how did you not see this? All right, there's a bullet point here. He's leaving with his reputation wounded, relationships severed, companies in crisis, fortune diminished, and little to show for dodgy but chaos and contested savings. And by the way, I hope that all of the dodgy people working at the agency, if you want to call it that, are feeling miserable about it. Like I think they all realize that their power was tied to being able to leverage the fear of Elon Musk. And if he's gone in disgrace, these guys have targets on their back. And some of these, we normally wish this sort of thing on young kids. They're not, only, I think they're all of majority age at least, though. But they're going to have some targets on their backs, and with good reason. And I don't know how they're going to fare now. It'll be interesting to see a follow-up. Anyway, so like they said, he's leaving, and with little to show for dodgy but chaos and contested savings. Why it matters? Ugh. Musk may not have achieved his audacious goal of cutting $2 trillion from America's debt. He may not have. Nah, he didn't. And he didn't come anywhere close. But they say the disruption he unleashed inside the federal government, for better or for worse, there's no better, will reverberate for decades. Don't even posit that there could be better. There isn't. Zoom in. Woo. Musk has publicly acknowledged the enormous toll that dodgy, which he characterized as patriotic existential project, both patriotic and existential, gee whiz, has taken on his private life. He's still beloved by President Trump, but his favorability ratings have plummeted amid scrutiny of dodgy's mass layoffs, sweeping program cuts, and unprecedented access to Americans' personal data. And I guess we'll now see some indication of what the hell did he really want all that data for. We have lots of guesses, but I guess now that he is dumping his governmental responsibilities to the extent that he had any, he can turn his focus to exploiting the data, and we'll begin to see exactly what the plans for it were. For Wisconsin's Supreme Court election last month, Democrats painted Musk, who poured $25 million into the race, as a corrupt, unelected oligarch with his eyes set on dismantling Social Security. By the way, we didn't need any paint at all for painting that portrait. It just appeared out of nowhere. It's a miracle. The message stuck, and Musk's GOP-backed candidate lost. By the numbers. What's by the numbers? Tesla, battered by boycotts, protests, and even fire bombings. Meh. So its net income plunged 71% in the first quarter, triggering Musk's decision this week to scale back his involvement in dodgy, and of course the law, but that was never going to apply. Wedbush Securities analyst Dan Ives, a longtime Tesla bull, it's all Tesla bull from my point of view, celebrated the end of, quote, this dark chapter, but warned the brand damage caused by Musk in the White House / dodgy over the past few months will not go away. By the way, let me just point out 71% profit or net income plunge over the first quarter, all sorts of terrible, terrible financial numbers for them. This despite the fact that he convinced President Trump to allow him to do like a live action featuring the president commercial for Tesla, like with making a display showroom on the South Lawn and making a pretend show of having Trump buy Tesla vehicles. And whatever happened to that Tesla that he bought? Apparently he did buy it, or it was on display for several days afterwards. But now I'm sure they're bored of it, and I'm wondering what happened to it and who's driving it, if anyone. Anyway, I can't follow up on that. But Musk's net worth has declined by a staggering $122 billion this year. That's not bad. Nearly matching the $160 billion in government savings claimed, but never established, by dodgy, which budget experts believe is wildly inflated. And by the way, as others have pointed out, the difference between $2 trillion and $160 billion is about $2 trillion. So we're talking about a lot, the big numbers. When you add more zeros and get to $1 trillion, yeah, it's 1,000 billion in $1 trillion. 2,000 billions is what you needed to save. How many did you get? 160. So that's, $1.85 trillion off of the $2 trillion mark. That's a huge, huge miss. And it bears repeating every time he does something like this, and every time people point out, $160 billion is a lot, a huge amount of money. It's more than he lost, as a matter of fact. But it's nothing compared to $2 trillion. The idea that he was going to come in and save $2 trillion. Remember, the federal budget is like $1.5 trillion for the whole year. And he's going to find savings of more than the whole damn budget for a year. How? It was going to be over multiple years, yes, but still, just not done. Musk, who bankrolled Trump's campaign to the tune of $288 million, still remains the world's richest man, because you can lose $122 billion if you have 400 and still walk away the world's richest man. Zoom out. Inside the government, Musk's slash and burn campaign has fundamentally reshaped how federal agencies operate, in some cases ceased to allow them to operate. Right, and in some cases, whether they operate at all. They just said it. Dodgy spent one of its first weekends. Oops, I got the alarm sound turned up. Dodgy spent one of its first weekends feeding USAID into the wood chipper. You remember that? Gutting an agency that millions of people around the world rely on for, I don't know, plastic surgery, daughters' weddings? No. Food, water, shelter, disease surveillance, and disaster relief. But, maybe some plastic surgery. I'm sure there was some waste, fraud, and abuse in there somewhere. And if there was, we pardon you for it, if you're Republican enough. Musk's team then tried to delete, as they put it, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a financial watchdog created after the Great Recession to protect people from being ripped off by banks and other institutions. Sounds popular. Sounds like a good idea. His dodgy team has since gone agency by agency, infiltrating sensitive IT networks, including the Treasury Department's centralized payments system, in the name of rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. I have a feeling that he'll be wrecking things in the government long after he's supposedly gone.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Coast, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. My headphones were a little tangled up. I had trouble getting them back on there after the break. All right, we were talking about Elon Musk allegedly leaving government. We don't know whether, we'll never know. At some point, he'll just be secretly directing things, I assume. He's not going to just let $250 million investment in Trump's old leathery ass go to waste. But, I guess he could take some time off, enjoy himself elsewhere. And then when he gets frustrated or annoyed with something he reads in the newspaper, he'll call up and say, I run this government again, except I'm going to do it remotely from here on in. Anyway, we left off pointing out that he and his team then went agency by agency, stealing all the data that they could and worming their way into the Treasury Department's centralized payment system, which is enormously damaging. And by the way, I have if you want to know how damaging and what the possible consequences of that and on a continuing basis are, I have something that Rosalind McGregor sent me, which is, I guess this is what Paul Krugman is doing with his days these days. He too has turned into a podcaster. By the way, I wanted to, I'll give you this advice, and it may be bad advice. You're probably doing much better with your podcast than I am, but you don't have to do video. I'll just say it that way. Like, we could, and I know that's the prevailing model And I'll say this, I'm glad for Paul Krugman that he feels so comfortable saying, and he should. I mean, like, you need to hear what Paul Krugman has to say. And he's done like zero planning for it, which is great. Honestly, I strongly prefer it to the overproduced look, which has its value there too. Like, you make it look like a real newsroom, or you dress up in a suit and you have professional cameras and all that stuff. And the reason that has value is there is a certain news consumer who will look at something and say, this is a guy filming in his kitchen. I don't need to listen to him. It's Paul Krugman. You should. But take an idiot and put him in a suit and make it look like he's on the set of a news program somewhere, and people will say, I don't know, he just said we were invaded by Mars, but he's wearing a suit. He might be right. So, there is that. Anyway, he's just simply turning on the camera and having Zoom phone calls with various experts that he wants to talk to. And I mean, that's pretty good. And it was very funny listening to this thing. So, as I said, Rosalind McGregor sent it along, and I'll try and include it in the roundup. I'll make a note to myself to include Rosalind's video. And she actually said, you might want to play some clips from this, which I might. And it was very informative. And he's interviewing, I don't know his background, but Nathan Tankus is the name of the guy he was interviewing. And I guess he is an economist himself, or at least certainly well-versed in the economically related issues that he was addressing. Yeah, okay. Economist, and I don't know what else to say. Does he have any institutional affiliations that I should be mentioning? I mean, I got the AI return on this stuff says he's an economist, although what is it? Law student with no degree. I guess he dropped out of law school, which is fine because he was doing much better as an economist. But it gave him a good background. Law student with no degree turned economic analyst. And I don't think that was meant to be super supportive of his position here. From the Business Standard. I don't know what the Business Standard is. Maybe they're a law student with no degree turned business publication. But it does say his informative newsletter on the U.S. economy is netting nearly $50,000 a year. And it should. He seems like he really has a pretty good grasp on it. But I don't know. I'll have to see whether I can make my non-newsletter net $50,000 a year. Okay. At any rate, he gave some excellent explanation of the mechanics behind the Treasury payment system. And I mean, wow, all around the Treasury payment system. Because I'll tell you this, it's an hour-long interview. And I got about halfway through it before it became obvious there's no way I'm going to be able to edit this thing into usable clips, because Nathan Tankus speaks exactly like I do. So there's no way. I mean, it's like, we're the same magnet polarity. I can't make this work. But it's very interesting to watch somebody else do the same thing. He's trying to explain some mechanical point about the way the Treasury operates, but we keep getting sidetracked with background. Well, you need to understand this, and he'll explain it and say, so this is how this works. If you do this, you got to do that. Well, you don't always have to do that, but in the main, you're supposed to do that. But now, of course, Trump is wrecking all of that. But even before Trump, you used to be able to, under certain circumstances, not do that. It seems like just what it would be like to listen to me. Anyway, I couldn't decide how to edit the thing, and I couldn't just run it. I'd be stealing an hour's worth of IP from Paul Krugman, and I think that might not be nice. I mean, I could probably get the permission if I asked. But anyway, you should go and listen to it. I'll give it to you. You can listen to it. And he's explaining essentially the danger. Why is it so dangerous? What can happen when you give anybody, like any one person really, control over the Treasury payments system? But in order to understand why it can work that way and why the damage that it threatens could happen, he has to explain over the course of an hour what's connected to what and why it's connected to those things and why you ordinarily don't give people control like this because it can have these kinds of repercussions. So it's a really fun listen. I mean, thinking about how dumb that sounds. So Paul Krugman talks to Nathan Tankus about the ins and outs of the mechanics of the federal treasury payment system. What a fun listen. Now, that's not the right label for it, but it's a very interesting and informative listen. And if you're a fan of this kind of explanation, I think you'll enjoy this thing. So there you go. I'll include it and give it to you. But I think that might make interesting listening alongside remember I was supposed to be doing this quickly, run through of the stories of the day. Where were we? We were in Axios's, flippant, superficial look at what might be the end of the Musk era in Washington. And we left off here saying his dodgy team had gone agency by agency, stolen all the data, gotten itself into the Treasury Department centralized payment system, which for our purposes here on this show for the moment, pending you're listening to the Nathan Tankus interview, means that one guy who's not even elected anything, but has hypnotized the president or something, can literally turn payments on and off, maybe remotely, maybe without being involved in government at all, and just say, if I don't like this program, despite Congress having authorized it and the entirety of the federal government being put in motion to make it happen, I can say, no, it doesn't. And a million other things as well. By the way, on his way out the door, the dodgy boys are adding, by the millions apparently, adding people to the death database in the Social Security Administration. I think we initially heard something about 6,000 people who had been added, and I think I'll have to find this thing, but someone somewhere put a different figure on it saying that up to 4 million people might have been just wholesale placed on it. They really don't care what the consequences of that are, and I think that has to do with everybody who works for them being 20 years old, and they don't really grasp that stuff yet. And it may be way out of control at this point. Let me see if I can't make a note to find that death database story for you, just so that there's some link and we can be sure that I read it correctly. Back to the Axios article. In some cases, Dodgy has exposed seemingly frivolous examples of government spending, like a $360,000 grant to reduce social discrimination of recyclers in Bolivia. That's the common attack on. That's the most common tactic of waste, fraud, and abuse hunting out there among government spending, and it's always a distortion of what happened, and without any benefit of an explanation for, well, why might that be of interest? And then you find out why it's of interest. This is how they convinced people to make the grant. Why don't you read me the description of how that helps advance American interests that convinced bureaucrats who are responsible to someone for their decision making? Why don't you read me the other side of the story at some point? Nope. If we do that, then it's not a funny story. Happens all the time. We're constantly hearing about those things. Why, they're paying people to study lizard saliva. Well, did it occur to you to read the abstract of the paper? As it happens, it got turned into a cancer drug, and it just saved your grandma. Well, yeah, but it came from lizard saliva, and that's funny, so let's get rid of it. And besides which, my grandma died anyway, so now F everybody, because there's no more cancer as far as I'm concerned. Grandma's dead. No foresight whatsoever. And it's not funny that way. So they love to be funny with it. What else? The administration's aggressive marketing of these findings has helped reinforce the widely held view, which I guess is wrong, that Washington is bloated, inefficient, and overdue for reform. Maybe not George Washington, but certainly Donald Trump. Bloated, inefficient, and overdue for reform. But the dodgy team's credibility has repeatedly been undermined by, we'll say, mistakes, duplications, and false assumptions uploaded and then quietly deleted from its online wall of receipts. Even Treasury Secretary Scott, is he Bessent or Besant? I keep saying Besant. Greg has, I think, a different pronunciation, and I never checked to see which one it is. I assume he's leaving before I'll figure out how his name is supposed to be pronounced. Anyway, one of several cabinet officials to clash with Musk, he accused the billionaire of overpromising, and the billionaire in question here is Elon Musk, because Scott Bessent is a billionaire too. They're all billionaires. So which one do they mean? Musk. Accused the billionaire of overpromising and underdelivering in a West Wing shouting match last week. That one apparently came down to like chest bumping in the hallway outside the Oval Office as well. Some fun profanity, I think, involved in that one too. We didn't get to that story. But there's a link in case I don't know, maybe we'll take a peek later. What they're saying, you know how they format their stories. Dodgy's verified savings has been less than 1/10 of 1% of federal spending. I'm going to find $2 trillion in savings. No, you're not. Verified saving, less than 1/10 of 1% of federal spending, says Jessica Riedel, like Riedel High. I don't know. Riedl. Well, I should get it right because she's a senior fellow and budget expert at the Conservative Manhattan Institute, where that's what they do. They drink Manhattans and then they try and analyze the economy, and it doesn't work. Anyway, there have been embarrassing accounting errors, lots of public statements that turned out to be false or misleading, or actions slapped back by the courts. Between the lines, Republicans have celebrated as Dodgy has slashed wasteful contracts, canceled leases, and fired unproductive employees. All wrong, by the way. But its cuts to the IRS threaten to reverse any progress made on reducing the deficit. And that's, not the only problem with it. But that's the one they're focusing on. The spending savings are so small that they'll undoubtedly be overwhelmed by the significant tax revenue losses which result from gutting IRS tax enforcement. Riedel tells Axios. It makes a mockery of claims that Dodgy is really just about cutting deficits. The bottom line, allegedly, Musk will remain a force in American politics long after his Dodgy days are over, especially with his acolytes strategically installed in high-profile positions throughout the federal government. I can't speak more highly about any individual, Trump told reporters on Wednesday, heaping praise on the billionaire advisor and top donor. He was treated very unfairly by, I guess you'll call it the public. I guess you'll call it the public, because it was the public. He loves the country. He doesn't need to do this. And he certainly didn't. And I don't know. That's the story. The more substantive, maybe look at it from the New York Times. What Elon Musk didn't budget for, firing workers costs money too. This feels like a good process story. An expert on the federal workforce estimates that the speed and chaos of Musk's cuts to the bureaucracy will cost taxpayers $135 billion this fiscal year. What did we say he saved in the Axios story? Even though it was exaggerated, and even though he was aiming at $2 trillion, what did he come down with here? Somewhere there was a dollar figure. Anyway, it wasn't $2 trillion, certainly. But here we are. That his net worth had declined by $122 billion, but that he claimed $160 billion in government savings for all of his work. $135 billion of it goes back out the door in accidental costs. Whoops. So not great. Elizabeth Williamson is the reporter for the New York Times on this one. Trump and Musk promised taxpayers big savings, maybe even a dodgy dividend check in their mailboxes. Remember that? Well, what do they have to work with? They're claiming $160 billion, $135 in costs. So everybody gets, 1/10 of 1 cent. What a great check that's going to be. And by the way, cutting those checks erases the rest of that supposed dividend. Anyway, that ain't happening. Well, let's see. That all went down when the Dodgy service, as it came to be known, was let loose on the federal government. And now as he prepares to step back from his presidential assignment to cut bureaucratic fat, Musk has said without providing details that Dodgy is likely to save taxpayers only $150 billion. So it's down by $10 billion since we read Axios. That's about 15% of the $1 trillion he pledged to save, He pledged to save $2 trillion. So that's about 7%. I don't know. Where does the rest of this paragraph go? That's about 15% of the $1 trillion he pledged to save, less than 8% of the $2 trillion that he originally promised, and a fraction of the nearly $7 trillion the federal government spent in the 2024 fiscal year. Is that right? $7 trillion? I guess I must have been, when I was thinking 1.5 trillion, that might be, I guess that's just a hugely outdated number, unless that was somehow exclusive of mandatory spending, the discretionary spending budget. I don't know. But anyway, all right, I get around to pointing out just how minuscule the savings are compared to, what he's claiming. And this is his claim. No one, he doesn't even have to tell the truth about that. He could lie, and he still picked a stupid number. The errors and obfuscations underlying Dodgy's claims of savings are well documented. Less known are the costs that Mr. Musk incurred by taking what Trump called a hatchet to government and the resulting firings, agency lockouts, and building seizures that mostly wound up in court. The Partnership for Public Service, a nonprofit organization that studies the federal workforce, and everyone who works for them will soon be arrested and sent to El Salvador, has used budget figures to produce a rough estimate that firings, rehirings, lost productivity, and paid leave for thousands of workers will cost up to $135 billion this fiscal year. At the Internal Revenue Service, a Dodgy-driven exodus of 22,000 employees right in the middle of tax season would cost about $8.5 billion in revenue in 2026 alone, according to figures from the Budget Lab at Yale University. And, when that gets mentioned on Fox News Air, they say, Yale, what do they know? The total number of departures is expected to be as many as 32,000. Neither of these estimates include the cost to taxpayers of defending Dodgy's moves in court. Of about 200 lawsuits and appeals related to Trump's agenda, at least 30 implicate the so-called department. They didn't use the word so-called, but should have. Not only is Musk vastly overinflating the money he's saved, he's not accounting for the exponentially larger waste that he is creating, said Max Stier, S-T-I-E-R. We'll see if we pronounce that one right. The chief executive of the Partnership for Public Service. He's inflicted these costs on the American people who will pay them for many years to come. He's got the money. Make Musk pay this. If it's going to cost $150 billion to defend all the lawsuits he caused, take it from him. Mr. Stier and other experts in the federal workforce said it did not have to be this way. Federal law and previous government shutdowns offered Musk a legal playbook for reducing the federal workforce, a goal that most Americans support. Not this way, they don't. But Mr. Musk chose similar lightning speed, blunt force methods that he used to drastically cut Twitter's workforce after he acquired the company in 2022. I guess he took seriously the admonition to run government like a business. What ends up happening? Well, you end up getting sued and losing, and all of the money that you thought you were saving, which is nothing compared to the money you thought to claim you were going to save, goes out the window in losses in court and legal costs. The law is clear. That's the whole point of the law, usually, said Jerry Buchholz, who over 3 decades in public service handled hiring and firing at 7 federal agencies, including NASA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, from which Mike Flynn, the notorious international spy, was once fired. They can do all the things they're currently doing, but they can't do them the way they're doing them. They can either start over and do it right, or they can be in court forever. And they chose to be in court forever. Harrison Fields, White House spokesman, defended Dodgy's cuts and called the $150 billion that the administration had saved monumental and historic. It's neither, and most of it might not even be real. Let's see. Okay, so here's lots of White House defense of the things. Then the Times picks up the narration here. Based on the latest available information, the Dodgy cuts have targeted at least 12% of the 2.4 million civilian employees in the federal workforce, but a wide gap exists between Dodgy's planned cuts and the number of people who actually leave. Buyouts and firings initially trimmed about 100,000 workers, thousands fewer people than those who typically retire in a year. According to the Office of Personnel Management figures, at least 1/4 of those 100,000 workers have been rehired at full pay, most after judges ruled that the firings were illegal, and some after Musk said Dodgy had accidentally sacked those workers, like the ones safeguarding nuclear weapons or ensuring aviation safety, which didn't happen, and combating bird flu and Ebola. When judges ordered that the workers be hired back, the government put them on paid leave, meaning taxpayers would foot the cost of rehiring them, plus the salaries they collected while staying home. That is efficiency, isn't it? Layoffs of 10,000 employees at the Department of Health and Human Services wiped out the entire team at the Centers for Disease Control that were combating HIV among mothers and children around the world. In an interview, 2 public health physicians said they were caught off guard because the team's work had always had bipartisan support. They were facing termination on June 2nd and said they wanted to return to work but did not know to whom to make their case. Musk's methods have cast a pall over the latest effort by an American president to trim the federal bureaucracy, as most Americans say they want. In congressional town halls and interviews, even Trump voters have said they're tired of Musk's bloodletting. In a poll released this month, 58% of those surveyed said they disapproved of how Musk was handling Dodgy's work, and 60% disapproved of Musk himself. So anyway, they're not saving money. I'm going to stop at this point. You get the idea. You should read the article for further details. But the headline is the thing you should take away. I should have just left it at that. What Elon Musk didn't budget for, firing workers costs money too. Mr. Businessman, how could you not have figured that out? All right, back into Pocket and around the internet to try to bring you a couple of other stories. An update on one we brought you probably about this time last week, where we said you got to go into the weekend knowing that Ron DeSantis and his wife are in trouble, facing for the first time a hostile but still Republican-dominated state legislature who was outraged with something similar, something that Michele Fiore just got pardoned for, standing up a charity, steering dollars to it, in this case state budget dollars, and then absconding with the money. So I guess it stands to reason that the story this week is, though they told us last Friday, no, even though they're Republicans, they're all really pissed, and this really poses a serious danger to DeSantis. The news story from the Orlando Sentinel is Florida lawmakers shelve Hope Florida, that's the charity that they stood up, shelves investigation for now. Essentially, something happened between last week and this week that something that was in this hand was moved into that hand, such that now the people who were very, very angry and were going to possibly impeach Ron DeSantis are now saying maybe this isn't such a big deal after all. Isn't that interesting? 2 nonprofit executives called to testify about a charity affiliated with First Lady Casey DeSantis failed to show Thursday morning. They just didn't show up. And the state lawmaker leading the investigation into Hope, Florida, announced he was suspending that work, at least for now. But Representative Alex Andrade, I don't know whether he says Andrade or something like that, a Republican of Pensacola, also says he has evidence. Now, this is how it happened. He has evidence that Attorney General of Florida, James Utmeyer, remember him, and Orlando Attorney Jeff Aaron, he has evidence that they together engaged in a conspiracy to commit money laundering and wire fraud. That seems to be a very popular crime among Trumpers. And that several parties played a role in the misuse of $10 million in Medicaid funds. By the way, can I just point something out? This is a good incentive to go this weekend and listen to that Nathan Tankus interview with Paul Krugman. Why is wire fraud such a popular crime among Trumpers, for which they apparently are getting pardoned, at least in the case of Michele Fiore? And the answer is because wire fraud is the crime you would get charged with when you mess around and illegally tinker in electronic payments, like, the Treasury payments system, for instance. And Nathan actually discusses, this sort of payment system extensively. I mean, that's the point of the question and the point of the interview, really. But he points out, it's easy to understand that you can't just take cash out of somebody's wallet or pocket because you want it and they've got it. That's a very obvious crime, but the electronic payment system kind of confounds everybody. It's still like, hey, if you explain it to people in court, that person had the money and that person took it from them and it wasn't, legally done. Yeah, but that feels like white collar crime as opposed to that guy was walking down the street or that Secretary of Homeland Security had $3,000 in her purse and went to dinner and you took it from her. That's a crime. That's not a white collar crime. What color is that? I don't know. But we have to collar that person for that crime, for sure. But had they tinkered with a computer and taken $3,000 out of her account, that'd be like embezzlement. White collar. Somehow. It's thievery, but I don't know. That's an interesting concept all by itself. Anyway, with that, I brought us back to Nathan Tankus to remind you that the richest man in the world has a computer system that allows him to do that white collar thing to everybody, including the government of the United States, where all the money is. Trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars floating around, and he can control where they float to now by typing in the password and going in. It's Joshua, by the way, to get into the back door of the Treasury payment system. Anyway, they're charging, or they were worried that the DeSantises would be caught up in all of this, but guess what? They found a way to undo it. And how did they undo it? Basically, it comes down to this. To long story short, this one, the Attorney General of Florida is, of course, a Republican and would ordinarily be responsible for prosecuting this, but he's not going to prosecute himself. He was stealing money through this system, so that's not going to go anywhere. And if they wanted to make a federal case out of it, hey, what do you want to make a federal case out of it? Who would they send the federal case to? Yeah, it would be the Department of Justice. Who's in charge up there? Pam Bondi, the one who used to be Florida Attorney General. And, well, I'll be darned, she's not going to implicate herself in any of that either, nor any of her friends or the people she left behind to run Florida in her absence. So there you go. Not likely to lead anywhere. And the Florida Republicans are beginning to realize it and retreat from their prosecution. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're ready to roll again. I'm once again late to get the headphones on. I'm going to have to untangle these things. So without getting into the substance of what's being alleged about, which we tried to do last week when we were reporting that Hope, Florida was under investigation and the DeSantises were in trouble, I just remind you that essentially how did they do it? The Hope Foundation ended up with $10 million from a court settlement here. They got steered to them. Andrade led a 3-week investigation into the money that the Hope Florida Foundation received as part of a $67 million Medicaid overpayment settlement agreement that Florida made with one Centene Corporation, Centene, a managed care contractor. A little obscure, but okay. The foundation is a legislature-created charity arm of the Hope Florida Initiative, embraced by Casey DeSantis as a way to help people get off traditional welfare and other government assistance. And in this case, it is a methodology, I guess, to help the DeSantises get off of government assistance when they're no longer in the governorship. But this way they'll have $10 million of slush fund, I guess, available to them. That was the allegation. The Hope Florida Foundation ended up with $10 million from that Centene settlement with Florida. Why? I don't know. It then donated that money to 2 dark money groups that within days of receiving those funds donated $8.5 million to a political committee set up by Utmeyer. That committee's goal was to raise funds to help Governor Ron DeSantis defeat last November's ballot initiative to legalize marijuana. So he was going to burn the retirement money out of it and use it for political purposes. Also impermissible. Andrade said that all the settlement money resulting from overpayments by the state should have been returned to Florida to help provide health care for needy residents, that diverting it to Hope Florida and then to a political action committee looks to be a crime. Like, why did that even happen in the first place? The state sues a medical provider, coverage provider, and says, you defrauded us out of $67 million. Okay, they win the case. $67 million, was it, is disgorged from Centene and sent to the state. This is how much we stole from the state. Here's the money back, or whatever. Maybe the money plus some penalties. Why does 10 million of it end up with this charitable foundation? I mean, I guess the state wins. If the state legislature has established this thing, I guess they can direct money to it. But why didn't that $10 million, why did the $10 million go to Hope, Florida? Well, I'm going to use it to help people get off of government assistance. Yeah, well, I want to use it for the rest of the state that got gypped out of $10 million. Oh, and I'm not so, you know what? That's another one of those things that like held over from childhood that we learn along the way. We're trying to purposefully to erase from the language for good reason, right? Well, they were defrauded. They had $10 million stolen from them. So apologies there to the Roma people. True. Real thing. Anyway, so they ended up trying to use this for political purposes, defeating a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana, which probably, was pretty popular. Anyway, Andrade has said that the settlement money, all of that should have gone back to Florida state coffers, and there was certainly no reason to divert it to Hope, Florida, and certainly no reason for Hope, Florida to have used it for a political campaign. His investigation pitted the Panhandle lawmaker against DeSantis, a fellow Republican, who Andrade said could no longer be trusted. The purpose of these meetings has been to obtain the information necessary for us to frame our decisions as the legislature. When the executive exhibits no care or concern for the misuse of taxpayer dollars, we, as the legislature, have an obligation to everyday Floridians to be even more vigilant. That's like real governance. I don't know how good he is at it, but the line's certainly a good one. Anyway, as we said, no likelihood of their being investigated by the state because it is alleged that a good portion of the money went to his campaign, the Attorney General's work and his campaign. And if they took the case federal, they'd find no relief there because it turns out the person at the head of the Federal Department of Justice is the person who used to be in those same shoes. And who knows what she may have taken along the way. And even if she did, who cares? Because they'll all be pardoned because wire fraud is the favorite crime of Donald Trump. Just to harken back to the story I told you of Michele Fiore, it just sort of occurred to me during one of the breaks that we just let it slide that there was no comment from the White House on the pardon, which when they sign things, he loves to talk about why he's doing it. Right? He's signing ceremonies for stuff that no president has ever had signing ceremonies for. Why no comment on this? And it's because it was just naked. Like, I'm not dismissing the case because I got the money that she stole. It's just blatantly, I like her. She supports me. And she was in trouble. And I didn't want her to be in trouble because I like her because she supports me. That was it. Normally we say he's so transactional. There might not even have been a transaction here. I saw her. She was on television. She had some plastic surgery. She looked great. And she always says she liked me. So, that's really it. That's all there is to it. And that's why there's no comment. It was indefensible. All right. Now, another serious story that you need to know about. I got to check in on what did I park here that is unidentified. Yeah. Okay. Right. This was, I guess this is how I was able to, do the long story short on this thing. This is Tyler King, who was tweeting around this story from the Orlando Sentinel and pointing out that, unfortunately, the Hope, Florida scandal is going nowhere. The Florida legislature has shelved the investigation, even though their leader says, the leader. Is it the majority leader in the House who says it? I don't know. Says he has evidence of, and maybe just the leader of the investigation, Representative Andrade, says he has evidence of felonies because why are they shelving it anyway? Because the state attorney general is up to his eyeballs in fraud, and it would rely instead, because it can't be him, on the DOJ, led by former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, to file charges. So that ain't happening anytime soon. Okay, in case you were wondering where that, idea came from. Okay, next serious story that you have to know before the weekend. Everybody's talking about it. New York Times coverage of it is here, and it's Maggie Haberman. So you have to read it. Reed Epstein and Ken Vogel all teaming up on this. And this is worrisome. You've likely heard about it already. Trump directs Justice Department. And again, as many other commentators have pointed out, that's enough of a headline. Stop right there. You got a problem. Trump's not supposed to direct the Justice Department, but he's reserved his right to do that, by which I mean he claims he has one, which he doesn't. And Trump directs Justice Department to investigate ActBlue, described here as the Democrats' cash engine. You know about ActBlue. I'm sure you've made contributions to political campaigns via ActBlue. It's just, an online donations processing engine. Everybody uses it. It makes good sense. The president ordered an inquiry into ActBlue, the main Democratic fundraising platform, in his latest move using the government to target political opponents, which, of course, you'll recall he ran on preventing Democrats from doing. Unspoken was, I'm totally going to do it, because every Republican accusation is a confession. President Trump on Thursday directed the Justice Department to investigate ActBlue, the fundraising platform that powers virtually every Democratic candidate and cause. The move steps up Republicans' efforts to cripple their opponents' political infrastructure. It was the third time in 3 weeks that Trump has directed the government to target a perceived political enemy. Impeachable crime. He has drastically expanded the use of his powers to try to damage domestic opponents, eroding a post-Watergate norm of Justice Department independence far more than he ever did in his first term. Trump called for an investigation by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who should be busy investigating something going on in Florida but isn't. Called for an investigation into ActBlue, which is used across the Democratic Party's ecosystem to collect donations online. The inquiry is ostensibly meant to look into possible illegal donations made by people in someone else's names, known as straw donations, as well as hard dollar contributions from foreign donors. Mr. Trump asked for a report on the results of Ms. Bondi's investigation within 180 days. Trump's action represents a threat to one of the key financial cogs of the left, potentially hindering Democrats' ability to compete in elections. It is likely to please elements of his base, for whom ActBlue has become a top target. Congressional Republicans have separately been investigating what they claim are the platform's insufficient security provisions, and ignoring the insufficient security provisions, let's say, of, having signal chats about ongoing military operations or forthcoming military operations. For days, Democratic groups had worried that the White House was planning executive orders or memorandums that would target an array of nonprofit organizations. White House officials insisted no such orders were being drafted, so I guess they are, and maintained that stance for days. Just over 2 weeks ago, Trump signed memorandums targeting 2 officials from his own first term for investigation. Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs, you know about those guys. The Republican scrutiny of ActBlue has focused on claims, thus far unsubstantiated, they thankfully tell us at this point in the story, that it allows straw and foreign donations. Federal election law bars straw donations and prohibits foreign citizens without permanent residency from donating directly to federal political candidates or political action committees, but not inaugural funds. Just want to point that out. A Justice Department investigation into ActBlue is likely to create vulnerabilities for the entire Democratic fundraising apparatus. Party consultants have relied on ActBlue to bring in donations. Candidates, committees for federal and state legislative chambers, and liberal caucuses use the platform as their primary mechanism to process donations. ActBlue plays a vital role in enabling all Americans to participate in our democracy. You know, I don't even have to explain it. You know what it is. You know what it means. And you probably instinctively understand what the dangers are. And I'll put it this way, as I did on Blue Sky yesterday. Are you sure? Are you sure? Do you have any confidence whatsoever not just sure, but do you have any confidence whatsoever that Donald Trump won't simply, think about all the things that he and his spokespeople have done over the past couple of days that we've talked about on this program. Are you sure, do you have any confidence, any reason to believe that Donald Trump and his minions, whatever you want to call them, won't eventually, like even by the end of this weekend, simply declare that if you gave money using ActBlue to support Democrats, because Democrats support, for instance, getting to the bottom of the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, and because we have declared Kilmar a terrorist, and if you speak out on his behalf, Seb Gorka tells us you are a terrorist, and if one of the people speaking out on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's behalf is a Democratic politician, and you gave money to support that Democratic politician, aren't you a terrorist now too? Oh, that's ridiculous. All I did was give money to a political campaign. And look, there are plenty of people who got hauled into court over the years, as far back as the George W. Bush administration, giving money to what they thought were legitimate Muslim charities, and may in fact have been legitimate Muslim charitable organizations. And they're Muslim, and so they give to them. It makes sense, right? Well, at some point, the George W. Bush administration decided, it'll probably fly by unnoticed for most people. They don't know what this charitable organization is. It's got an Arabic name. The people who gave the money have Arabic names. They went to help people in Muslim countries, mostly Arabic Muslim countries. It would be an easy thing in this political climate to simply declare that they were really and truly a front for funding terrorist organizations, whether that was true or not. And they got hauled into court. Some of them had their lives ruined. Some of them went to jail. Some people just had their reputations destroyed. All on the claim that this was all really about terrorism, and no one really wanted to look under the hood and find out. Their defense attorneys eventually did, but sometimes they found themselves blocked. No, this is a national security issue. You can't have that information. So everything was obfuscated, everything was black boxed, and people got in trouble for making charitable donations. These aren't charitable donations, these are political donations. But what the lesson that the Trump people drew from all of this was that the executive branch has enormous power to simply declare things, to say the magic words, to borrow some of the language we talked about in days past. If you say it's terrorism, one, people don't dig too far. Just like if you accuse people of having child pornography materials on their computer. Yuck. No one wants to dig into that. I'll take your word for it. It's easy to believe that guy's a scumbag, whatever, or he looks like a scumbag, or I hate him. That's enough for Republicans, certainly. But if you just say, no, it's terrorism, and you've funded it. Terrorism evokes a visceral reaction, and lots of MAGA people have become totally convinced that, being a Democrat and supporting Democrats is some sort of mental illness, or it's a crime in itself, or it is terrorism. And now they have this other link. If you support this guy, he's a terrorist because we said so. And if you support giving him due process, you're a terrorist too. And if you support financially politicians who say, no, due process is something that's available to everybody, it's a basic constitutional tenet. Well, the people who supported him, that's material support for terrorism, just like we used to say about giving to a Muslim charitable organization. And that's that. Are you certain that it won't come to that? You can't be. You can't possibly be. And how will they prosecute all such people? I don't know that they ever will. I don't really think that everybody who ever gave money to a candidate via ActBlue really has to consider that they will be hit with some sort of material support for terrorism charges. But the point, I think, more of interest to Trump and his people is that they have the potential to bring those charges, and that they can use that to, if not, I would imagine for the bigger donors, blackmail you. Well, we're going to bring these federal terrorism charges against you unless we see that you have lots of money to give to political causes. Let's say some number of millions of those dollars now come to me. We won't charge you. Won't that work? Oh, I can't be seen as that. All right, well, then just buy some Trump coin instead if you want to disguise your bribery to us, because that's coming too. That's in the works. So one of the other stories hanging out in pocket today. So they could do it that way, or they could do it, just simply by saying, well, we're not really, they won't tell you, we're not really going to prosecute you, but we could. And they were just telling people, you could find yourself in real trouble. You might win your case eventually, but it's going to cost you millions of dollars and untold years of your lives fighting these charges. Why don't we just avoid these problems by not having you donate to any political campaigns? That fear alone will shut down some number of millions of dollars in campaign funding. So there you go. It's insane. What can I tell you? You've got to be on the lookout to see how this develops. Anyway, there's a very long story that goes along with it. You should absolutely read it. But as I said, I wanted to jump around from one story to another a little bit. And I mentioned to you the other bribery mechanism that is sitting out there. This, a Washington Post story. You've no doubt seen a little bit about it, but shared just the other day. As this is interesting. Just to show you what kind of fire hose of crazy we have. The story we just talked about, the ActBlue investigation, was shared by all sorts of commentators and social media yesterday, all with the same comment: worse than Watergate, much, much, much worse than Watergate. It's open weaponization of the government. Remember that the Republicans are the ones who established a subcommittee in the House to investigate and put a stop to the weaponization of government. But again, as you know, every Republican accusation is a confession. What they really mean is we have to criminalize Democratic use of the government and legalize, or at least look the other way, on Republican use of the government. And here's another example of it, and another example of every Republican accusation being a confession. Remember when we were gnashing our teeth and rending our garments as Republicans, you and I, as Republicans, oh my God, Hunter Biden, what? He's painting now as a hobby, and he's selling his paintings. And of course, everyone knows that you can totally influence Joe Biden's policymaking if he gets wind that you bought one of his son's paintings. I don't know. That's really actually pretty tenuous, but in a world where you think everybody is a corrupt actor, I guess that would make some sense. If you're the sort of person who thinks that the Bidens are a crime family, you're going to see in this a avenue for bribery. But I don't know how much his paintings were selling for. And I guess if it's all just criminal activity, you could report it as, well, somebody paid $50,000 for his painting. That's a lot of money. But they really paid $5 trillion. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because just as we were finding out, this is much, much, much worse than Watergate. They're weaponizing the Department of Justice to investigate every $5 donor to any Democrat ever. Over on the other side, in a different story, something else that is very clearly the most brazen corruption ever witnessed. How Trump team turned a dinner invite, and it's not last night's $1 million a plate dinner, it's a different one, different dinner invite, into a crypto boon worth millions. Nearly 24 crypto wallets have very recently, I think, acquired more than 100,000 Trump meme coins worth roughly $100 million, and that's loosely put, worth. After its promoters, the Trumps, said top buyers could join the president for dinner. So now he has this great idea, right? This great corruption idea. I will invite the top, and I think he said like 20, 22, some dumb number. I'm not really sure why. The top 220, even more. Why the extra 20? I don't know. But the top owners, whoever it is, who are the top owners of Trump meme coins by some date, presumably, will get invited to a special intimate dinner with the president of the United States. And you can prevail on him, and you know how it is. this president, if you get to talk to him, he'll pardon you for crimes. He'll grant you an exemption from tariffs. He'll appoint you secretary of something. He'll put you in charge of the Smithsonian. You never know what you can get out of this guy. And again, sure, it's a problem. We're about to try to prosecute ActBlue for accepting foreign donations because that's corruption. Whereas foreign campaign contributions, well, that would be a problem. But foreign purchases of Trump meme coin, no law against that. It's not a political contribution. So cool, right? So all it is a giant competition. Who can become a big enough owner of Trump meme coins to get onto the list, to come to the dinner, to make the case that they should be the beneficiaries of some Trump corruption. Drew Harwell and Jeremy Merrill have reported this for the Washington Post. Buyers have poured tens of millions of dollars into President Donald Trump's meme coin since his team advertised on Wednesday that top purchasers could join Trump for an intimate private dinner. And this is by which he means it'll be a private dinner and he will touch you in the intimate parts, I guess, because when you're a star, you can do it. They let you do it. Next month, this is when the dinner is taking place. So it's not I got confused a little bit because apparently this big dinner is supposed to take place also in my corner of the world at the Trump Virginia golf course and cause traffic problems and make me feel icky. The holders of 27 different crypto wallets have each acquired, they found out, more than 100,000 Trump coins each. Stakes worth about $1 million each since noon on Wednesday, when the team announced that the 220 top coin holders would be rewarded with a night to remember, unless, of course, I'm being asked about it in federal court, in which case I do not remember it, and I never met you, and you're not even my type. On May 22nd, at the President's Trump National Golf Club outside Washington, crypto wallets are generally anonymous, making it challenging to identify who the purchasers were. The idea of offering direct presidential access to those who pay into a project benefiting the Trump company's bottom line, and really you should put a finer point on it, benefiting the Trump family, Ivanka, Jared, their kids, Don Jr., his cocaine habit, whatever it might be. Eric, Barron, Tiffany. Have I missed anybody? XQP935, in case maybe Trump is the parent of one of those guys. I don't know. So, yeah, you should probably, rather than saying the Trump company's bottom line, there's no company, it's the family. Well, that has sparked criticism over potential conflicts of interest. That's well hedged. The biggest buyer acquired 2 million coins, worth about $24 million, according to the Post's review of crypto data. Taken together, the 27 wallets acquired more than 8 million Trump coins, worth about $100 million as of Thursday afternoon. So on Wednesday, they said we're having a dinner. On Thursday, the Trumps got $100 million, basically, I guess. I don't know. I guess it didn't really work that way, but they get some percentage of this $100 million that poured in. Some owners may have bought the coins before the announcement and merely moved them from one account to another to become eligible for the gala, depending on how you pronounce that. The coin's price has surged more than 30% since the announcement to about $12, boosting the value of the crypto wallets owned by a digital firm affiliated with Trump's family business, the Trump Organization, by roughly $100 million, the review shows. So, yeah, they did get $100 million. $100 million out of thin air. Nothing. Like, at least you got a painting. If it was good, I don't know, but you buy a Hunter Biden painting for considerably less than $100 million. You got a painting out of it. This, nothing. No physical nothing. The Trump-allied team that launched the meme coin also earns fees when the coins are bought or traded, including via a debit card friendly buy now button on the coin's website. The team has earned $1.25 million. There's a million on the next line here in fees over the past week, the analysis found. So money just pouring in, unlike the money that was not pouring in from the tariffs, but which Trump said was pouring in. Anyway, okay. I never did remember to turn down the volume on my alarm, so you all get to hear it when it goes off. One more paragraph here before we exit for the break. Trump has frequently promoted his desire to turn the United States into the crypto capital of the planet. And two of his sons, the dirtiest ones, Eric and Donald Jr., have described the Trump coin as the hottest digital meme on Earth. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We only have one more segment left to tell you about the craziest stories. We got the worse than Watergate one, politicizing the DOJ even further and sicking them on ActBlue, and then of course the most brazen act of corruption ever announced. Selling the meme coins, the Trump meme coins. And if you just buy enough, the biggest buyers get to come and ask me for a favor and I'll give you something. And maybe I won't. Maybe I'll arrest you and then steal all the coins. That's always a possibility. If it was a high-rise building that they were having the party in, I would say don't sit next to the windows. But all right. No indication that he plans to capture, torture, murder any of the people who attend this thing. And no real reason to believe that that's the case, but it's in the offing. Just want to put that out there. So where were we? Yes, the dinner promotion creates the specter of a pay-to-play deal for wealthy spenders eager to bend the president's ear, said Virginia Cantor, the chief ethics counsel for the watchdog group State Democracy Defenders Action and a former White House associate counsel under President Obama. Yeah, you could say that. It creates the specter of a pay-to-pay deal. It is one. Come on. He actually is selling personal access to him and to the White House if people invest in this meme coin, which really has no intrinsic value, Cantor said. But even if it did, it wouldn't matter. If you are a foreign government burdened by tariffs, will you be enticed to invest? If you are a criminal felon, will you maybe invest in hopes that they'll give you an opportunity to make your case for a pardon? Yes, sure. We can imagine all of those things. Chris Murphy posted on X/Twitter, this isn't Trump just being Trump. The Trump coin scam is the most brazenly corrupt thing a president has ever done. Not close. The White House did not respond for a request for comment. Can you imagine? The meme coin project is run by a Trump organization affiliate and a Delaware registered company called Fight, which together own 80% of the coins. That company, led by a Trump friend, an entrepreneur named Bill Zanker, is named for Trump's rallying cry after the attempted assassination last year in Pennsylvania. You probably figured that out. The coin is one of several Trump-branded crypto ventures launched within the last year, including a company called World Liberty Financial that offers a separate crypto token named WLFI, World Liberty Financial Incorporated, I guess, that calls itself inspired by Donald Trump. Since launching days before the inauguration in January, the meme coin has earned for Trump and his business partners about $41 million in fees alone and $312 million in sales of the coin, according to the Post analysis. Now, the value of the coins could go down. They are wildly volatile. But the fees are the fees. It's done deal. $41 million in the bank for them. The Trump meme coin team said that only the coin's top 220 holders, golly, would be invited to the gala dinner and created an online leaderboard to rank the anonymous accounts, who are known only by their crypto wallets, addresses, and usernames such as Elon, for instance, MTGA, Murdery Trader Green Anonymous, I don't really know what that is, and Boop. Anyway, at least 15 wallets held more than 100,000 of the Trump meme coins, the leaderboard says. The Post used data from Flipside Crypto, Arkham Intelligence, and the Meteora, decentralized exchange to analyze meme coin transactions on the blockchain. You really need to know the methodologies. I say no. So there you go. You got the idea of all of this. And of course, they've got a history of doing this thing with the other coin, the World Liberty Financial one. So it's not like you didn't see it coming. The biggest wallet on the leaderboard, by the way, calling itself Sun, S-U-N, has more than 1.1 million of these coins, a stake now worth more than $13 million on paper. The wallet is registered by HTX, a crypto exchange founded in China. Shouldn't there be a huge tariff on this? Whose global advisory board includes crypto billionaire Justin Sun. Oh, yeah. Sun invested $30 million in Trump's World Liberty Financial last year, while under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission on charges of, what is everybody under investigation for? Fraud, of course, their favorite activity. Remember, by the way, Dodgy was getting rid of waste, blank, and abuse. Anyway, the SEC asked the federal judge to halt the case in February, and the Justice Department earlier this month directed prosecutors to no longer pursue or investigate certain kinds, the ones being done by our friends, of crypto crimes. Neither Sun nor HTX immediately responded to requests for comment. That doesn't mean they aren't doing it. It just means they're not talking about it. Okay, so you get the idea here. I don't know if you're going to need to know anything more about this from me, but you can certainly read about it over the weekend. I'll point you to it. There are a number of other stories that we can try and squeeze in. All right, I gotta try this one. Just checking in on Blue Sky and saw this one go by. I think, I guess, has Time done another interview? Yeah, another interview with Donald Trump, which I don't even know what to tell you about this. By the way, it's illustrated with a photo of himself standing in front of a painting of himself, which is something he's done before, but it's not the infamous V-neck tennis sweater one. It's a painting of him doing the fist pump after the assassination attempt thing, his new favorite image. And his new thing is he likes to be photographed, I think, pointing, usually at the camera or nearby, but his point is now his power move. He's done with the thumbs up thing. His serious business thing is the pointing. Anyway, read the full transcript of Donald Trump's 100 Days interview with Time. We're not going to do that, although I'm sure it would be entertaining and a little bit frightening. Here are some excerpts being offered by Daniel Radosh, senior writer producer at The Daily Show, so to give you some idea of how he's approaching things and where he's coming from. The entire transcript, he says, of Time's interview with Trump is insane. Let me mark this for pocket so that I can find this later and give it to you. Just to pick one moment, I love this one. This is a good pick. Trump says, he's being interviewed by Time. Trump says, Biden would never do an interview with Time. I'm brave. I'm sitting down with Time. Biden would never do an interview with Time. He's too sleepy. And his people kept him away from the press. And I'm the only one transparent and open enough to do an interview with Time. Well, no. But as Daniel puts it, Trump says Biden would never do an interview with Time. Then, when told that Biden did do an interview with Time, he says, oh yeah, well, how did that go? And then when he's told, well, you can read it for yourself. Well, he can't read. So what does he say? This is great, right? This is classic Trump. It doesn't matter what gets said. I'm right. Biden would never do an interview with Time. He did. Well, how did that go? Well, read it for yourself. Actually, I did, and it didn't go well. So if you did, then you know that. But how do you? Biden would never do an interview with Time. Didn't you just say you read it? No. What? I mean, okay, here's the transcript part that he pulls up. Oh, I'm going to have to really focus on this one. Little type. Well, sure, but is this, yeah, this must be Trump. So we'll do his voice. Well, sure, but you wouldn't be, if this were Biden, well, first of all, he wouldn't do an interview because he was grossly incompetent. We spoke to him last year, Mr. President. Huh? That's the transcript. Huh? Huh? We spoke to him a year ago. How did he do? You can read the interview yourself. Not too good. I did read the interview. He didn't do well. He didn't do well at all. He didn't do well at anything. And he cut that interview off to being a matter of minutes. And you weren't asking him questions like you're asking me. The F and F do you know? I mean, really, seriously. And if that's just one of the picks that Daniel makes here. I guess there's another one. Oh, and then there was the one at the end, he says. By the way, John Adams was wrong. We are not a government ruled by laws. Though at least he acknowledges that women can be dictators too. So that's a win for feminism. The Time interviewer says, one final question, Mr. President, being all serious and stuff. You were showing us the new paintings you have behind us. You put up all these new portraits. And that was commented on the other day. Somebody was pointing about the portraits that he chose. I mean, that's a meaningful thing. Ordinarily, like I admire this president or whatever. But if we mentioned that the Oval Office has been redone with all sorts of gold spray painted doodads and gewgaws, including stuff like painted wooden, Rococo decoration things glued to the mantle of the fireplace, and like meaningless sort of urn and trophy and whatever looking things put on the actual mantle shelf. It's really bizarre. But also that he had put up all these different portraits, but that somebody had speculated that he probably has no idea even who's in the portraits. But he selected what seemed to be portraits with the most ornate framing. And that, just gilded stuff. Although I suspect you can probably, as president, order a portrait reframed in a different, I want a more ornate frame. Get me one of those versus more plain. But anyway, but remember the days when the Republicans were about cloth coats? Yeah, probably not. Anyway, so here we go. One final question, Mr. President. You were showing us the new paintings you have behind us. You put up all these new portraits. One of them includes John Adams. John Adams said, we're a government ruled by laws, not by men. Do you agree with that? And okay, what's the answer? John Adams says that? Where was the painting? That's the answer. What do you think? Do you agree with John Adams, who are a government of laws, not men? Where's the painting? What painting? And he doesn't know that he put it up, to which a normal president would say, he did say that, and we are a government of laws and not men. Well, why do you think that I disagree with that? I mean, a normal president would say that, and a normal criminal would say, I agree with that 100%. This is me obfuscating my crimes. But what painting? Where is it? And because he doesn't know that he put up a John Adams painting, because he put up a frame that he liked, is what happened. Anyway, they're sitting right in front of the painting. Where is this painting? It's right behind you, you banana head. This is inside joke, the banana head thing. But anyway, yeah, it's right behind you. It's right there. That's what the guy actually says. So now he answers the question. We're a government ruled by laws, not by men. Well, I think we're a government ruled by law, but, somebody has to administer the law. So therefore, men, certainly men and women, certainly play a role in it. I would agree with it 100%. We are a government where men are involved in the process of law. And ideally, you're going to have honest men like me. He doesn't even really understand the nature of the questions. It's rather amazing. And somebody here, Frank Lynch, just commenting here, I have dried kidney beans with better memories. Where's that painting? You're sitting under it. Oh my God. Anyway, well, I would recommend that you take a look at that. And maybe it's something you want to do with your weekend time. I don't know. All right. There's more stuff. I got to get to more things. Let's go. Oh, man. Okay. ProPublica has this is relevant, a new profile, The Untold Story of How Ed Martin, Ed Martin, who is currently the acting U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., an enormously important prosecutorial position inside the DOJ, wildly unqualified for it and wildly partisan in his activity. We read a little bit about it. One of these days we'll have to really sit down and read this profile, but he's so controversial. He's having trouble getting confirmed, but they're just letting him sit there as the acting. U.S. attorney, although he keeps saying interim for whatever reason. This is the untold story of how Ed Martin ghost wrote online attacks against a judge and still became a top Trump prosecutor. And I mean, the untold story is Donald Trump liked that he attacks judges. So there you go. Long story short, that's the way that one goes. But if you want to read like the details of what was the attack and how bad is it that a U.S. attorney for D.C. would be such a person, that's another opportunity to do so. It looks like it's listed as a 20-minute read, which is like an hour for us. But if you don't like reading and you want to listen to the article, it's a 28-minute read when they do it. And they don't need to divert, and they're probably not even allowed to divert and make comment along the way. So there you go. Oh, there's highlights. Maybe the AI did this for us. Reporting highlights. Emails revealed. Court records show emails between Ed Martin and an ally urging online criticism of a judge handling a case that he was involved in, which experts say is an ethical violation. Which, you don't need to be an expert to know that's an ethical violation. Legal payouts. Martin's actions have led to more than $600,000 in legal settlements or judgments against Martin or his employers, much of that not previously reported. And then lastly, politicized prosecutions, which is how we got to this. Martin has reshaped the office to reflect Trump's priorities, firing or demoting prosecutors who worked on January 6th cases and targeting Trump's critics with legal threats. So two prongs to that. One, of course, we discussed earlier, targeting Trump's critics with legal threats like ActBlue, et cetera, et cetera. And then also the absurdity of saying not only, and this has got parallel, I guess this would be the U.S. Attorney's Office's parallel to the Sebastian Gorka idea that if you speak out in support of legal rights that Kilmar Abrego Garcia ought to have afforded to him by the Constitution, since he's a terrorist, you're a terrorist too. You're aiding and abetting terrorism. And similarly here, if you are a prosecutor who prosecuted someone for a January 6th crime, now that we are changing the rules of the game, and January 6th is not an insurrection and treason against the government, but rather a patriotic, like dumping of tea over the sides of the ships into the harbor. It's not property destruction or theft. It's patriotism. Okay. And if you prosecuted patriotism, then you're the real problem. You're the one that's going to be fired. Who ordered me to prosecute this case? The Department of Justice that I work for. Yeah, well, that Department of Justice was from Biden, and they sucked. From now on, the new rule is you're in trouble for actually handling your assignments. Okay. I recommend that everybody take a look at it. It's one of several things that we haven't had a chance to read through on Ed Martin. Suffice to say, I think we've hit the highlights of the worst things that he's done, except new things keep getting revealed all the time. This time it's ProPublica doing the revealing. All right. Ordinarily, I would love to have read that to you, but you're going to have to read it for yourself. I'm sorry. Next up, let's see. We'll scroll down a little bit further here and see. Oh, yes, right. Also, something that I did see this. Scott also sent it to me. Thanks very much. Yes, okay. I'm not angry about it. I'm happy about it. Scroll through Trump's new COVID website and have your mind blown. Well, there's very little left to blow up at this point, but this ought to get rid of the rest of it. Scrolling through Trump's latest foray into history washing. It's an opinion piece, but it seems like, it's backed up by quite a bit of fact. Monica Hesse's opinion, in fact, an April 23rd piece, and it's illustrated with a screenshot of what I guess is now there at covid.gov, which used to be the place you'd go, how many people got COVID, or how many tests did we send out, the facts about the disease and what to do about it. Now you land on a splash page that has, all it is a big, dark, midnight blue background, President Donald J. Trump, the White House. And then the big, giant, full screen words, lab leak. Now, we should all know by now that that's been debunked a bazillion times. That's their theory, that the Chinese did it on purpose, or even if it was an accident, they are to blame for COVID and all of the conspiracy theory that goes with it. Now, the words lab leak are, again, in big, stark white letters on this dark background. And then the picture, a full-length, full-body shot of Donald Trump with his trademark scowl. He's walking out from between the words lab and leak for some reason. And then it says, so it's what the text there is, lab leak, the true origins of COVID-19. Interestingly enough, that's typeset, the true origins of, and then handwritten like in script and in blue, inky looking color is COVID-19, as if COVID-19, the disease, autographed this piece for some reason. So here comes Trump walking out for no reason whatsoever, out from between the words lab leak. A new website launched last week, covid.gov. Oh, okay, it's a new site. I didn't realize that. And even though an editor once told me that writers should never instruct readers to drop everything and look at this, because then readers might never return to their articles, I must now ask you to drop everything and go look at this. I will wait for you. And then some ellipses, and then you're back. I think we know why we're here. We have come to discuss lab leak, the true origins of COVID-19. Announcer voice on that one. Please note that COVID-19 is written in the cursive of a wedding invitation, while the rest of the words are written in block type of a James Patterson novel. I don't know what that even means. But okay. The font fades toward the bottom of each word in a way that you are most accustomed to seeing, not on government websites where the goal is legibility, but rather on airport fiction where the goal is conveying that the identical twin is a serial killer. You get the idea. Please note also that please note that it's actually not lab leak, the true origins of COVID-19, but rather lab, full body portrait of Donald Trump striding purposefully toward the camera, leak, the true origins of COVID-19. Now, visitors to covid.gov are properly oriented. We all understand that we have been hoodwinked by a massive government conspiracy, and only the 47th president, who has nothing to do with anything COVID related at all, obviously, can save us. Scroll to a Google Earth map of Wuhan, China, which has been doctored to have some kind of shaky, smoky effect, showing visitors that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is just 7.5 miles from the Wuhan seafood market. Has that sunk in yet? If so, get ready to have your mind further blown. The National Institutes of Health is about 7.5 miles from the Smithsonian National Zoo. My neighborhood is about 7.5 miles from the White House. The Trump National Golf Club at Bedminster, New Jersey is about 7.5 miles from Wendy's in Branchburg, New Jersey. Jersey. Do you see what they're talking about here? Here. Fake echo. You like that? If you do, could you explain it to me? Scroll to a portrait of a beleaguered Anthony Fauci pressing his hand into his forehead. next to a PDF of the preemptive pardon President Joe Biden granted Fauci before he left office. Now, we are really getting to the bottom of this, because before I opened Lab Leak, the true origins of COVID-19, I would have told you the reason Biden preemptively pardoned Fauci was not because of wrongdoing, but because Biden feared that the famously vengeful Trump would seek to punish Fauci. And I mean, we're watching all the evidence of that, right? It was the whole rest of the show. And I would have noted that Trump turning on Fauci was one of the more bewildering things to happen in 2020. Fauci wasn't a Biden guy. He was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases during Trump's first term. Trump invited Fauci to brief America on the coronavirus many times, putting him forth as a trustworthy expert. Scroll to shady-looking images of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Scroll to there was no conclusive evidence that masks effectively protected Americans from COVID-19, as a quote here. The aesthetics of all of this can be best described as The Apprentice meets To Catch a Predator. As if at any scroll, Chris Hansen is going to pop out from behind a sofa and accuse Fauci of sexting underage COVID vials. By now, we might all know that coherent aesthetics are not necessarily a priority for this administration. The homepage for the U.S. Dodgy service looks like a GeoCities project circa 1997. MelaniaTrump.com sells an absolutely wild hodgepodge of Christmas ornaments, NFTs, and jewelry. Hulk Hogan ripped off his shirt at the Republican National Convention. Trump likes what he likes, and calling someone else tacky almost always makes the critic look snobby. So I almost left all of this alone. Except after visiting Lab Leak, the true origins of COVID-19, after sending it to a couple of people and having a good chuckle, I learned that COVID.gov was not a Trump original, like Dodgy.gov or MelaniaTrump.com. Rather, it was, okay, then we had it right, a complete overhaul of a previous government website, which was originally created to provide resources and information. That's what I thought. How to get a free coronavirus test. What warning signs to look for regarding long COVID for a terrified public. As recently as April 1st, oddly enough, the homepage contained guidance about which populations would most benefit from a vaccine booster. The Library of Congress has archived versions of COVID.gov only going back as far as 2022, 2 years into the pandemic. But you know what archived site is available going back to March 2020? The White House's page touting its coronavirus response. And you know what you find when you look at that site? You find reminders that Trump didn't inherit this pandemic from the Biden administration. Trump was president for the entire first 9 months of the pandemic. The White House was bragging that it distributed 125 million face masks to school districts. The masks that Lab Leak now decries as ineffective. He did do an interview with Time. How did that go? You can read it for yourself. No, in fact, I did, and it was terrible. That's how I know. That they launched Operation Warp Speed to develop the very vaccines that many of Trump's followers now believe either don't work, will make you infertile, or I guess magnetic, or contain nanobots. This is what is killing me about Lab Leak, the true origins of COVID-19. Not that it's weird or ugly or lame, though that's all true, but that this was a normal government website until just a few days ago, and now boom, everything that was once carefully vetted and fact-checked, gone. It's a full-scale rewriting of history using official government channels. Like many of you, I have been watching with fear to see what the Trump administration might do to America's future. The executive orders, the court appointments, tariff and division sowing, but all of that can be undone. What he does to our future can be undone. And so I worry more about what he's trying to do to our past. Via attempting to take over the way the Smithsonian tells the story of America, we got to that story, via ordering that references to race and gender be removed from government websites depicting historic events and initiatives, via taking a nationally traumatic event, one in which more than 1 million Americans died, and in which almost everyone was doing the best they could, and turning into another plot at the hands of evil liberals. Taking over the past is a point of no return. It's not that we can't get back to where we once were, it's that we won't even remember it. Troubling, scary, problematic, yes, all true. Okay, what can I tell you? We can't get to everything. I tried to sample as much as I could from as broad a spectrum of the fire hose of crazy as I could. Let me add one more thing just to throw it onto the record here, and it's a choice between two outright. This is the one I think you might have heard less about. I know we have no time for it. Oops, and I've played the wrong music anyway. So now I'll play this music. It's not so critical. You don't even have to edit that upstairs, everybody, if you don't want to. Anyway, one more target of persecution from the Trump administration that we didn't see coming. The New England Journal of Medicine. Yes, the law firms. Yes, the universities. Yes, ActBlue. Add now medical journals to all of this. Why? I mean, I guess it's related to the true origins of COVID-19 thing. New England Journal of Medicine gets swept up in U.S. attorney inquiry into alleged bias. This is over at Stat News, the medical news folks. And targeting of prestigious publication and perhaps others could signal a coming clash between journals and the Trump administration, reports Anil Oza. Last week, at least one scientific journal received a letter from a top U.S. attorney. Can you guess which one it was? Ed Martin. Asking it to respond to alleged bias. Now, one of the world's leading medical journals has received a similar inquiry as well. The New England Journal of Medicine's editor-in-chief, Eric Rubin, received a letter from Edward Martin in recent days, in which the prosecutor asked 6 questions, largely about alleged bias in a decision to publish unspecified content. They're going to rewrite not only history, but they're going to rewrite science as well. If you have published science with which we disagree, you may be a terrorist.
Netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, do your best. Stay sane. Get yourself informed. Read these things over the weekend. Don't worry. We'll be back on Monday to try to help you deal with all of it. And for now, Justice Putnam will help you through the next hour if you're feeling really depressed. Stay tuned for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next right here on Netroots Radio. Then Hill Sample from the Fire Hose 2. We'll see you next week.